ActionScript 2.0 is a lot different than ActionScript 3.0, which is what we're going to cover in this video. When we did ActionScript 2.0, we would have to choose where we wanted to place our ActionScript, such as on the timeline or on the button directly, and we were able to use Script Assist to add our actions. 3.0 is different. You can still use the Actions pane, but you're going to have to type the script in, or you're going to have to use something called code snippets, which helps save you time and effort. Now, in addition, ActionScript 3.0 doesn't let you add ActionScript to objects or buttons directly. Instead, you have to reference that button in the ActionScript panel and tell it what to do when somebody clicks on that button. So before we can actually start this, let's make sure that you have the Actions panel open. So go to Window, choose Actions, and I put mine on the left-hand side. You don't have to worry about this extra column here. And this little Script Assist wizard, you can turn it on or off. It doesn't really matter, so I'll just turn it off for now. And then make sure that you have an Actions layer that's locked so that you don't add any artwork accidentally, and click on the first frame of that Actions layer. Again, with the Actions panel, we can see we're on a keyframe of the Actions layer and we're on frame 1. So this is where we need to add our stop action. Now I could come in here and just type the stop action. Just make sure that you're getting your syntax, punctuation, capitalization, all of that correct, otherwise it'll give you an error. There's an easier way to do this though. Some of the most used and basic ActionScript functions are in something called code snippets, which is this panel right here. Now if you can't see this, again, go to Window and choose code snippets. And you have different categories of actions. So if you want to create something for mobile devices, if you want to control the timeline, if you want to do some kind of ActionScript with animation, then you can go to each one of these categories. For now, we're going to worry about the timeline navigation. So we want to control the timeline and how we move around the timeline, whether we stop or we jump to a different part of it, we play it, we loop it, whatever we want to do, we're going to be in this timeline navigation. So as with ActionScript 2.0, we can add directly an ActionScript directly to the timeline. So we'll click on that first keyframe, and we're going to double click and do stop at this frame, because we want this animation to stop to wait for someone to click on this button when they're ready to view the animation. Now when I double click that stop at this frame action, it added the stop action, plus it also gives you a note telling you what it's going to do. And it's going to pause at the frame where you inserted it. So when I want to stop it on the 200th frame, the end of my animation, I need to make sure to insert a blank keyframe. And this is very similar to 2.0. Because even though I'm clicked on the 200th frame of the Actions layer, if I go to the Actions panel, you can see I'm on a keyframe on the Actions layer, but I'm on frame 1. And that's because actions will only apply themselves to keyframes or blank keyframes. So in order to create a stop action at frame 200, I need to add a blank keyframe. So I'll go up to Insert, Timeline, and Blank Keyframe. And now with that frame selected, you can see I'm on the Actions layer, but this time it's the 200th layer. So we'll go back to Code Snippets and double click Stop at this frame, and it's going to stop there as well. Now we just need to add functionality to our buttons. Again, with 2.0 we would add it to the button directly. And this caused a lot of problems because all of a sudden you would have buttons and there would be script scattered everywhere, and only when you add it to the timeline can you see the A. So you would have an ActionScript that you added to buttons and you'd have to find that button, click on the button, edit it, and it was really hard to troubleshoot what was going on with the ActionScript. So now we keep all of the ActionScript on the Actions layer so that you have one place and it's easier to troubleshoot. And from here, we're going to reference this button and listen for a click, and when somebody clicks it, we're going to tell it what to do. So let's go ahead and choose the code snippets, and I'll go ahead and click off just so it doesn't erase that. And there's a couple options. You can click to go to a certain frame and stop or play. You can go to the next frame and stop or play, and the previous frame and stop or play. So we're just going to go ahead and do the click to go to frame and stop, or and play, because we want it to play our animation. So I'll double click it, and it says this action requires an object to be selected on the stage. Okay, that's a good warning for us. We're going to choose the button, and again it's going to tell us it can't be applied directly to the button, so it's kind of confusing that you have to select the button first, but that's okay. So with that button selected, we'll double click and do click to go to frame and play. And it's going to ask us what the instance of this button is. And what's happening here is that we've created one button clip symbol or button symbol called start. And we can use that button symbol as many times as we want. But in order to add ActionScript to it, we have to tell it which symbol we're referring to. So let's say this was a larger animation and it had, let's say, an animation with a dinosaur, an animation with a horse, an animation with a sheep. Then what we would need to do is we would need to create start buttons for each of those animations, and we wouldn't want to create 3 different symbols. We can use this symbol over and over again. We just need to give them each instance name. So this can be dinosaur start, horse start, sheep start, and we're going to be okay. So for this one, we'll just call this start BTN, because we only have one version of that. I could put 1 or 2 or whatever, and click OK. And now when we go into the action script, let's see what's happening. It kind of tells you what it did there, and replace the number 5 with where you want it to go. So let's break this down as to what's happening. Right here, it's referencing the instance on the stage. So that's telling it, we want you to add the script to this button with the instance name of start BTN. And we're going to add an event listener, so it's waiting for an event and it's listening for a certain type of event. So the event it's listening for is a click. And this could be a rollover, it could be a double click, it can be a right click, it can listen for a bunch of different things. But for this one, it's just waiting for a person to click. When it hears that click, it's going to execute this, click to go to and play from frame. So this is the function. This is the command, what we want to have happen. When it hears the click, what do we want it to do? We want it to do go to and play a certain frame. So again, it says replace number 5, and we want it to be number 2 so it can start at number 2. So I'll go ahead and type 2 in there, and now it should work. Let's view this. And it's going to wait, and it's going to wait and listen for my click. And even if I click anywhere outside of the button, nothing's going to work because we referenced that particular button by its instance name in the script. So now when I click it, okay, so it worked. Now we just need to make this replay button work. Now we're going to go about this a different way. Instead of trying to add the code and then it tells me it needs an instance name, we're going to go the other way. We'll go over to the replay button and click the replay button. And in the properties panel, with that button selected, you can see this is where you can add your instance name. So I'll call this replay BTN. And again, like I said, I can drag as many of these replay buttons onto the stage as I want to. And now with that one selected, you can see it doesn't have an instance name, and this one does have an instance name. So even though they look exactly the same, they're 2 instances of that button, and they should have 2 different names. So think of them kind of like twins. You can create as many as you want, but they're unique. So they each need their own unique names because they're each going to have a different unique command associated with them. So I'll delete that. And now that we've had the instance name, we can go to our code snippets, and we're going to click to go to frame and play. And again, it's going to add that event listener, but as you can see, it replaced the instance name at the beginning as replay button. And now it's listening for a click, and where do we want it to go? And actually we want it to go to 2 as well, because we want to skip that first scene where they would have to click start, and that's just tedious to have to click 2 buttons just to replay it again. So now this animation should be working perfectly for us. When it comes to ActionScript 3.0, it's really important that you remember to use the code snippet so you don't give yourself headaches trying to figure this out. And again, any symbol that you're using, it needs to have an instance name. Now, if you're working with graphic symbols, they can't be targeted with ActionScript 3.0, so they won't give you an instance name. So make sure the object is a movie clip first. And always the instance name, if I go back, always the instance name is going to start here. So that's a way to double check if things aren't working. Make sure your object has an instance name and that instance name is referenced in your action script.